Welcome to Exhuming the Truth, a podcast dedicated to cold cases, missing persons, systemic injustices, and the forensic science that seeks answers when silence remains. I'm Asha Walther, a forensic scientist and criminologist, and in each episode we examine the evidence, the systems, and the human stories often left behind. This isn't just about true crime. It's about truth, it's about accountability, and it's about giving a voice to those who deserve to be heard. Thank you for being here. Let's jump into it. Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope everybody is looking after themselves. I'm going to keep housekeeping super short today. I want to update you on Rob Snyder and just let you know we are still searching away. We have sent some leads off to the detective in charge at WA Police. We are in contact with him should we need to exchange any further information. So please don't think that we're not still out looking for Rob. We are. We just don't have enough to update you on at this point in time, aside from kind of going back and forward over places we've already been while also expanding into bigger areas. Then, of course, we have the missing man, William Bill Carter, who went missing in Perth. He's 25 years old, and I'm super, super sad to share with you that the body of a missing man, which is believed to be William Bill Carter, has been found. So the formal identification process is still happening right now, but the police have stated that his death is not being treated as suspicious. So I want to let you guys know that if you are struggling with grief or need extra support, please reach out to Lifeline on 13 11 14. Otherwise, in an episode about men's mental health, we did talk about the company called SANE, SANE. I've used them before. They're fantastic and 100% free. So if you do need extra support, please don't feel like you can't reach out and get it. We, of course, want to extend our deepest condolences to his family and friends and loved ones in this incredibly difficult time, and everybody who was also helping with the search for him. I know it does take its toll unexpectedly, particularly for those of us who are involved in searches and we don't particularly know a person personally, but we do have hope for them. It can be very distressing. So please do reach out if you need. Today's episode is going to be on the Bondi Beach shooting on the 14th of December, only a couple of days ago. So it has been a scramble to put this together. I want you to be fully aware that I'm going to be going into what happened, who the victims were, and what have you. So if this is going to be a bit triggering for you, I suggest that maybe you should sit this one out, or you can have a look at the chapters that are on Spotify, maybe skip ahead, whatever's going to work best for you. So let's jump right in. Welcome to Exhuming the Truth. Tonight we're addressing a tragic event that has shocked our entire nation, and that's the Bondi Beach shooting. This incident, which unfolded out of one of Sydney's most iconic locations, reminds us that violence can touch any community, anywhere. But before we dive into the details, again, this is a gentle warning that this episode contains discussion of real-life trauma and loss. Please take care of yourself while listening. As always, our goal today is to explore not just what happened, but why it happened, the societal context, and how we can respond responsibly and safely as a community. Let us first remind you of the individuals affected. While details are still emerging, authorities have confirmed that there have been multiple casualties. These were people with families, they were friends, and they had lives full of hopes and dreams. We must humanize them. They weren't just statistics in a news report. They were mothers and fathers, children and siblings, friends and colleagues. Their loss leaves a hole in the community that cannot be replaced. Whenever we discuss incidents like these, it's really easy to get lost in numbers or in politics, but let's take a moment to remember the human lives at the centre of this tragedy. Their names will be shared, and our thoughts are with every single family impacted. Okay, let's talk about the incident itself. At around 6:50 p.m. on the 14th of December 2025, two gunmen opened fire on Hanukkah celebration at Sydney's Bondi Beach. Around 1,000 people had gathered at Archer Park for Chanukah by the Sea, an event marking the first night of Hanukkah, hosted by one of the rabbis at Bondi. This attack killed 15 people, including one of the shooters and an assistant rabbi. At least 24 others remain in hospital. One of the shooters was known to the ASIO, the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, but had been deemed not an immediate threat. The shooting is the deadliest in Australia since the 1996 Port Arthur massacre. During the attack, a 43-year-old father and Sydney resident, Ahmed Al-Ahmed, tackled one of the gunmen from behind while the shooter was aiming and firing. He seized the weapon and aimed it back at the shooter, but was shot twice during this struggle. Ahmed is currently in hospital and he's recovering from surgery, and it looks like he is thankfully going to be okay. The gunman, after tackled, was able to retreat to a bridge where the second shooter was positioned. Police arrived and engaged both suspects, killing one at the scene and critically wounding the other. The duo at the centre of this massacre are a father and son. I'm not actually even going to share their names because I don't believe they deserve to be shared. Paramedics, police and bystanders alike all played a critical role in helping the injured. We were not short of watching random strangers running to the aid of other strangers laying there helpless. And this immediate response, though courageous, also highlights the constant reality that our communities can be exposed to random acts of violence at any given time. There was a diner at the Icebergs restaurant in Bondi. Her name was Elizabeth. And she described her initial confusion and panic as gunfire broke out by saying, "We thought it was fireworks, but it wasn't. People started running right up the beach. It was panic. It was terrifying." There was a photographer named Danny who was actually fired at the time, and he spoke about the direct threat that he and other witnesses faced. He said, "I locked eyes with one of the gunmen and he fired towards me." Others have repeatedly described it as a war zone, something like they've never seen before, with at least a dozen people laying on the ground. They just explain blood and screams of terror and screams for help. I spoke earlier about Ahmed Al-Ahmed, and he's being labelled deservingly as a hero civilian. His father said that he saw people were dying and he wasn't thinking about the background of the people he's saving. So he's basically describing his son as somebody who lacks discrimination. He was there to help anyone and everyone. And there's absolutely not a doubt in my mind, or basically anyone's mind, that he saved lives by doing what he did. I'm going to talk to you just briefly about the victims and what we know so far about who they are, because they deserve their time. There is a gentleman by the name of Eli, and Eli was 41 years old, and he and his wife, his beautiful wife, had just had a baby 6 weeks ago. Another gentleman by the name of Dan, he was 27 years old and he was from France. So he had moved over here and he was actually an engineer. And his girlfriend, Crystal, is just absolutely devastated at the loss that she is facing so early in her life. He was just 27. Then, of course, we have the beautiful little Matilda. She was 10 years old, and her family members shared some video footage and some photographs of her beautiful big smile. She was getting her face painted. She was in the little petting zoo with the animals, and she was playing with her little sister. And she looked like she had the most gorgeous personality and a great big smile. Then we have Yaakov, and he was a rabbi, and he was also a father, a very, very loved and respected member of the Jewish community. I want to talk to you about Boris and Sophia. They were aged 69 and 61, and they were actually the first to be killed and to be shot by one of the gunmen. And at that time, there is now footage surfacing of Boris and Sophia trying to stop one of the killers. So they had kind of jumped on him and tried to take the gun, which they did successfully, I believe, but it's believed he had another gun which he used to then kill the pair, which is devastating. The following day was Sophia's birthday, and in January they were about to celebrate their wedding anniversary, which is incredibly sad. Then we have a beautiful woman by the name of Edith, and she worked many years very hard to stop discrimination. We have Reuven, who was 62 years old, and he was a beautiful and loving father, and his daughter spoke out about when Ahmed El Ahmed actually tackled one of the shooters. Her dad, Reuven, came along and assisted by throwing bricks at the gunman, but he unfortunately did not make it through. But I have no doubt that his actions also helped save lives. We also have Tibor, who was 78, and he took his wife and his grandkids to that festival for that day to have a beautiful time. He was shielding a family friend at the time of his death. His wife and grandchildren did make it. We have Alex, who was 87, and he tragically passed by shielding his wife. His wife did survive, and he and his beautiful wife were both Holocaust survivors, which is just incredible. We have Peter. Peter was a former New South Wales police officer, and he retired and started doing his passion, which was photography. So he was actually the photographer that day at the event and lost his life doing what he was passionate about. And lastly, we have Marika. She was 82 years old, and this beautiful, beautiful woman was a volunteer at Meals on Wheels for the elderly Jewish, and she actually won an award, a service award. She had delivered 12,000 meals. Isn't that incredible? I have actually noted down here to chat about contextual leadership and leadership quotes, and I have been advised not to go into leadership and leadership talk because it would cause division. So I'm going to just briefly talk about it because I can't not. And if you know me and you've been here all year, you know that I'm going to say something when I feel it's not right. Our government is weak. It is their fault this has happened. I'm absolutely disgusted in the initial statement that our Prime Minister released, where he blatantly ignored the fact that this was an act of Islamic terrorism, and it was towards the Jewish community. It was an act of anti-Semitism, and he did not adopt that reality until further down the track when he started speaking on camera, and all he had to say was, we're going to restrict guns to improve this situation. And honestly, if he or anyone thinks that restricting the use or the access to guns in this country is the answer, you are absolutely insane. I will talk more about the gun policy he was talking about, but I'm going to drop it there on the contextual leadership because I have absolutely nothing nice to say about our government, and I honestly think he should step out of his position. Before we go further tonight, I want to take a moment to place the Bondi terror attack in the context of Australian history of terrorism. And I want to do that particularly focusing on attacks that were inspired by extremist ideologies, okay? So Australia, like many Western nations, has experienced a range of politically motivated violent acts over the past few decades. The threat environment has evolved over time, and in recent years, one of the dominant concerns for security agencies has been jihadist-inspired terrorism, like I just spoke about. And this is where individuals seek to justify violence through radical interpretations of Islamist ideology. So the notable incidences here that you might recall is in 2014 in Melbourne, there was an 18-year-old who attacked 2 counter-terror police officers with a knife before he was actually shot dead. And the police actually ended up describing this attack as influenced by extremist messages circulating globally. in 2014 again was, of course, the Sydney Lint Cafe siege, where that asshole, I'm just not naming names of these people who are doing, these names don't need to be known. They don't need to be out there. We don't need to sensationalize these people. So this asshole in particular at the Lint Cafe took hostages at Martin Place. He sieged them for 16 plus hours. He killed one hostage himself, and then 2 others actually died during the police rescue. So yeah, that was Islamic State. Surprise. 2015 in Parramatta, a 15-year-old radicalised youth actually shot and killed a police civilian outside the New South Wales Police Headquarters. Islamic? You bet it was. 2017 in New South Wales, 2 teenagers went on a stabbing spree. The counter-terrorism treated it as an extremist-linked attack, and in brackets, Islamic. Are we shocked? Seriously. I want to also just preface that security analysts in this country have noted that since the emergence of ISIS in the Middle East, jihadist-linked activity involving Australians, both overseas and domestically, have increased like tenfold. And with hundreds, I'm literally not exaggerating, hundreds attempting to join extremist conflicts abroad and several domestic plots disrupted. So the ASIO regularly review the national terrorism threat level. And in the more recent years, it was actually raised to probable, reflecting credible intelligence about individuals with intent and capability to commit acts of violence on Australian soil. But in all honesty, in my very personal opinion, I feel like every time our country experiences an act of terrorism, we get the backstory on these assholes, right? And it'll come up in the news and they'll be chatting about it and they'll just so casually say they were on a watch list or they were known to police. Like, pardon me, what do you mean? And has this happened in the Bondi shooting? Bet your fucking bottom dollar it has. Excuse my language, but yes, it has. These extremist acts might represent a very fraction of the Muslim community in Australia, because if I seriously had $1 for every time everyone's like, not all Muslims are terrorists. Yeah, that's not the point. The point is, even 1% of Muslims being terrorists is too much, and it's not fucking welcome here. It is not welcome in our country. And to have a chat politically without going into my absolute hatred of the government right now, tragically, incidents like this, the Bondi shooting, often lead to political debate, of course. And in Australia, we have strict gun laws already, and isolated attacks still occur. And this obviously raises questions when things like this happen about security and prevention and how we can respond as a society. But there's another layer, okay, on top of guns here, and that's immigration. But it's not just immigration alone, it's immigration and assimilation. And it's the policies that we have, or the policies more so that we do not have around assimilation. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, if we're talking about immigrants and we say, you know, we have this many people immigrating into Australia and only 50% of them assimilated, only 50% of them, you know, are living the Australian way. They're working, they're contributing, and they're getting along with people. Whereas the other 50%, no, they have come here, they don't talk to anyone, they don't work, they want to build a mosque and they just want to sit in there and do their own thing and never speak to anyone ever again. That's not assimilation. That is quite the opposite. And those are the people we need to get rid of. And it's about integration. And integration is a challenge, obviously, when individuals or groups just flat out refuse to engage with local values and societal norms in this country. And it is simply not the Australian way to go around fucking shooting people. And these pressures can exacerbate social tension, and they can even contribute to radicalisation in extreme and rare cases. But many migrants actually contribute positively to Australia every single day. I don't doubt it, because I know many people who have migrated here, or their parents have migrated here, and they're like some of my favourite people in the world. And they contribute to the country probably more than I do. But the policy gaps and the inadequate community support and failure to address integration, all of this can create a vulnerable space that kind of affects everyone, whether you like it or not. And this is what I absolutely hate about terrorism. And it's the one crime type that absolutely terrifies me, because it can happen to anyone, anywhere. It's on my mind when I go to a cinema. It's on my mind when I go to a music concert. And you bet your bottom dollar it is going to be on everybody's minds when they are taking their family to the beach. Like, who's going to be, going down to Bondi Beach and taking their friends and family out on a holiday and not thinking about that? Honestly. I know I'm going off on a tangent because all of these people have died, and I have always been a very empathetic person, or a sympathetic person, and I always put myself in other people's shoes, and I feel like at a time like this, everybody should be doing that, and everybody should be furious right now. And we have to collectively ask ourselves, how can we improve cohesion, encourage assimilation, and prevent social fracture before tragedy strikes? And can we do that? And I just want to play this clip for you because I think it's really important and I really loved it. And I heard this on Instagram on the Put Australia First Instagram page via a reel. And there was this man named Amika Edwin. And he is a host. He is a RAAF veteran. He's a founder, just an incredible man. And he is an amazing member of the Australian community. And he actually speaks about the events at Bondi. And I think in a few words, he really summarises everything perfectly. And obviously this clip and all rights within this are with Amika and Put Australia First as well. And I'll also link this video in our podcast notes in case you might like to go and have a look at what Put Australia First do and what Amika does and listen to him speak. So I'm just going to play this for you really quickly.
There's a lot of people that come here from wherever they do, and rather than doing what they need to do to assimilate into the Australian values, the one that has made the Western world so much better than where we are from, they don't. They do what they need to do to try and change it, and that is not okay. And I'm an African, I'm saying that. I came here for a better life, and it gave me a better life.
I hope you enjoyed that because I love him. I love that guy so much. Anyway, I want to talk about the gun laws and the suggestion from the PM, okay? And it always comes up after incidents like these, like the Bondi shooting, and they go, we need stricter gun laws. I want to be very clear. I do not believe guns themselves are the problem in Australia, okay? Australia has some of the strictest gun laws in the world. And these were actually implemented after the 1996 Port Arthur massacre. So since then, this is the next biggest mass shooting on our Australian timeline. This is it since 1996. This is the biggest one since then. And the reality is that the Bondi shooting wasn't caused by access to guns. Should dickhead one have had access to guns? No. Is that a problem? Yes. But was that the cause of all of this? No. It was caused by a violent individual who was motivated by ideology, and he had a personal grievance. And focusing solely on banning guns is not going to stop people like this from committing violence, and it's going to make law-abiding citizens more restricted, and in particular for our essential Aussie farmers who need their guns. If we actually want to prevent tragedies like this, the actual solution lies in addressing the root cause of violence, which is letting in immigrants who don't assimilate. Sorry, that's the answer. It's the rise of extremist ideologies and the mass immigration. It is not legislation around firearms. I have something even more irritating to talk about in a minute, but we will get there. Not first. I'm going to talk about this because this really pisses me off. And again, I'm not even going to name this disgusting person who committed these. Now, it was a father and son duo, and the father was killed at the time. Fantastic. And the son, unfortunately, made it to hospital and was in a coma. Now, today he has awoken from that coma, unfortunately. And that is not the most unfortunate news I have for you. What actually is going to happen to him? Now, because he has committed an act like this This entitles the police to hold him for extra time. I don't know what the standard time is. I believe it's only several days. But now they're able to detain him for 14 days. Is anybody else banging their head on the wall at the thought of that they only have 14 days to detain this man? Because I am. I'll do it enough for all of us. Now, it gets worse, guys. Now, from here, in these 14 days, they're going to try and work out, basically, how many, this is going to fall on the back of forensics, let me just say this. How many bullets can they link to deaths that have occurred out of all of these 15 people who have been murdered? How many of those bullets can they link to this man's gun? Not his dad's, this man. Because they're just going to wipe Dad, because Dad's dead. So everybody that he's murdered, you never mind. Never mind justice for the ones that he's killed. They're going to go and test every single bullet or shell casing, and they're going to do a ballistics report, and they're going to fucking hope that they can match these bullets in these murder victims to the gun that this guy was using. And this is where we are forensically in this country. This is where we stand forensically. And this is all because of the power that the Department of Justice holds over us and the power that the government holds over us, because all of this could be changed very quickly in a heartbeat by these people in power. They just choose not to. They're okay with making a law where two people can go and commit mass murder, and if you die, well, okay, you die with your sins. But if you're alive, well, we're not going to, punish you according to the entire crime, or the fact that you planned this, or the fact that you had, IEDs ready to detonate, or the fact that this was premeditated, or the fact that you came there to murder, or the fact that, the intent is just beyond scalable, or the fact that there was 6 guns. How many guns did each killer use? How many bullets came out of each gun? Which bullet belongs to which gun? Who gives a flying fuck? There is one perpetrator still alive, and he needs to be prosecuted for this crime and everything it entails. And honestly, if they come back and say, oh, he only actually killed 1 person, but he injured 20, and he will only get sentenced to 1 set of life imprisonment, which is 25 years, all hell, absolute hell is going to break loose in this country. These are the things that you don't know about because they don't want you to know about them. This is where forensics comes in, and this is where it all lies on the forensic scientist's back to get as much evidence as they can and hope and pray that they get it as right as they can. And if they can't get it right and they've done everything they can, God bless them, but the lack of evidence is going to be evidence in court, and it's not going to help us prosecute this guy. And it's just absolutely mind-boggling to think that somebody could commit crimes like this and only be held for 14 days and then have this much leeway into the investigation. I honestly, it blows my mind. So after my absolute rage and rant, I want to give not just you, but also myself a bit of a positive takeaway here. Not that there is one, but we will create one. But we do have to remember, that even in the darkest moments like this, the humanity. When you're looking at pictures and videos, we're talking about Ahmed, we're talking about Boris and his wife, all of these people, the gentleman who threw the brick, who literally saw somebody open fire, so many rounds, and they were like, no, I am going to risk my life for people I don't know. Amazing. And during this incident, aside from those heroes, the first responders, the Bondi rescue lifeguards who took everything they could up to help straight away, ordinary bystanders stepping in to help without hesitation. These people didn't think twice. They were I saw a video of one beautiful woman who was pregnant, and she shielded another couple's young daughter. They somehow got separated from their daughter. And this woman shielded another person's child and saved her life and risked her own. It was incredible. And I want to encourage everyone to remember this lesson, because when we see horror and things like this on the TV, you know, there are so many, like with every evil person, there's 100 good people, if not 1,000 good people. Please don't ever forget that. Like, there are people willing to help. And in closing, this shooting is a massive, sobering reminder of how fragile life is and also the consequences of violence. But it also reminds us of the resilience of us, of the communities, of the victim survivors, the courage of individuals, and also the importance of standing together. And a gentleman named Fred Rogers said this, and I absolutely love it. When something bad happens, look for the helpers. There will always be people helping, always. And I find that to be very true, and I find that to be incredible, how people will stand together like that. So thank you to everybody who even considered stepping in on this absolute tragedy. And I'm just so incredibly sorry from the bottom of my heart to everyone that this is going to affect moving forward. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have enjoyed it. You can follow along on any of our social accounts at Exhuming the Truth on TikTok and Facebook. You can find our Facebook discussion page linked in our podcast notes. We also have the brand new Exhuming the Truth Sleuth Society, which you can find on our Facebook page. Thanks again. We hope you have a beautiful day. We'll see you next week.